Hello, everyone. How are you? Thank you for joining us today. I'm Deana Paradis, and I'm going to begin talking a little bit about my background and journey through nonprofit management and financial management, um, and then turn it over to my colleague, Odell Mays, and let him continue. Um, so I started in public accounting. I started with PricewaterhouseCoopers upon graduating college and became a CPA. I spent about 11 years total with PwC, and 2.5 years of that period, I relocated to the United Kingdom and worked in PwC's London office. And during that time, they sort of assigned me to the government and public sector. I had done a number of healthcare clients in the US. And so, of course, healthcare is part of the government sector, and that made the most sense. Well, within the government and public sector also houses the charity clients, and those are all regulated by the United Kingdom's Charity Commission. So I spent a number of years working with charity clients in the UK, and I really developed a passion for those clients. I really enjoyed working with their operations and staff and looking at their internal controls, finding ways to help them become more efficient and more effective and prepare information for their stakeholders. And it really, it really meant something to be able to demonstrate value to this client base as opposed to some of my for-profit clients or even some of the governmental healthcare clients. So when I returned to the US, I had completed my MBA and I was with PwC, and I really knew that my next step was to look at moving into the nonprofit industry. So I pursued a CFO position with an independent day school in Louisville, Kentucky, where I live now. And during that time, I'm still there, so this is 7 years ago. During the first couple of years, I had a pretty steep learning curve. There are a number of hats that you sort of wear in working in a nonprofit, as many of you probably already know, compared to working in a large public accounting firm with 30,000 individuals in the United States. We're so specialized, and here in a nonprofit organization, I was working with our strategic planning committee on creating our tactics and our strategies. I was working with our advancement office on our capital campaign. I was working with our finance committee as the liaison to the board and the finance committee on all of our work that needs to be done during the year. We executed a $17 million construction project in my first 3 years. And and that was more the finance piece. I utilized my skill set there in finance and working with lenders and so on and so forth. But I found it to be a very sort of comprehensive position. So fast forward, I decided that I wanted to expand my skill set beyond that of just the finance function, and that really to be a successful nonprofit leader, that was important to me. So I looked at a number of different graduate programs and found the Columbia SPS nonprofit management program provided a very robust program and curriculum that allowed you to not only focus on or not only learn about fundraising, but be able to develop skills in human resource management and governance, the legal aspects of managing a nonprofit, social purpose business, planned giving, financial management, marketing. I could go on. So all of those pieces I sort of saw and I touched every day, and I found that this program made a lot of sense. So I graduated last May. I completed the program over 2 years as a part-time student, and I was one of the first online pre-cohort, but I did join in on one of the online cohorts towards the end. So I, participated as an online student from Louisville, Kentucky. I was able to do a couple of the block week courses. So I joined a leadership group in San Francisco, and I participated in the ethics class over a summer period because I could travel on the weekends. So I was able to do a little bit of both. And throughout the 2 years, I met some just absolutely wonderful people, students, faculty, staff. I worked with a number of people on projects from different backgrounds and experiences, and I was really impressed. And then I loved the scholar practitioner model and learning from those who are, running a business such as Odell, to whom also, study the theory like Cindy and Dr. Greg Rukowski. So I can't say enough about the program and how pleased I've been. Currently I'm still in my position. So I graduated in May, and I have found that this program has helped me in my current position. It has also helped me become a better board member. So I, joined a couple of nonprofit boards, and have found that I again utilize these skill sets in our board work, making sure we're following protocols and best practice for good governance, and knowing, how to understand financial information and marketing and communications and telling a story, et cetera. So all that to say is it's been a great value to me in my current position. And it's also allowed me to think about, also what's my next step? Do I want to move on to, executive director role again, beyond that of finance? Do I want to, focus on consulting and, go sort of back to the PwC model where I'm working with a number of wonderful nonprofit clients? There's all sorts of ideas and paths that you can really explore. So at this point, Odell, who has significant consulting experience and teaching as well, I'm going to turn it over to you, Odell, to kind of talk about yours, and then we can open it up.
Great. Thank you, Deana. There are a couple of similarities with our paths that we've taken. Definitely the work with the public accounting firm, and the word passion that you use, which I think is really important. My background to how I got to where I am, it was a little bit more circuitous. I did my undergraduate work at Stanford, psychology major, went to work at IBM for several years, decided I wanted a graduate degree, moved to New York from Texas to get my MBA in finance and tax. Yes, it's possible to get an MBA in tax. Why anyone would want one, I'm not sure, but that's what I did. And took that MBA in finance and tax, and went out to work for Deloitte Touche in their tax consulting practice. I will say that I was probably a little naive and optimistic about like what that experience was going to be like. At the same time that I was doing that part of life, I was actually very much involved in, it was the late 80s, and I was very much involved in HIV/AIDS movement, activism here in New York City. And so by day was a tax consultant in an accounting firm, and by night was going to ACT UP demonstrations. And so felt this real disconnect and dissonance between what I was really interested in, which was social justice and that piece of the world, versus what I was actually doing. And decided that I needed to make a change. And part of that change involved following my passion, and probably even more fundamentally, being able to move in spaces and work in places where I could bring all of me. And so being in the nonprofit sector in that time, especially focused around HIV and AIDS work, seemed to be where my heart and where my soul and where my authentic self was present. So I really did have one of those awakening moments where I was doing something professionally that just, to put it kindly, I found soul sucking. but wanted to be able to like hone my craft in terms of having studied finance. And so took my MBA from the corporate world and went into nonprofit world, the nonprofit sector, and specifically started out by working as a director of finance in an organization, and then the COO in an organization, and then became an executive director. So served as an executive director for an HIV prevention organization here in the city. Um, so at that point, my life was really professionally and socially and politically kind of melded into one, which was the best of a lot of worlds for me. I was doing what I loved, I was working in what I was passionate about, and I was making a difference. And so all of those things resonated with who I was as a person. And between being an executive director and being able to serve on the boards of organizations at the time, you really gave me the perspective of being both in governance and management. And so here I was at, 5, 10 years into having been an executive director and served and working in nonprofits. I'm bringing all of myself to my work. I'm Black, I'm gay, I'm connected to a lot of different communities, and feel very passionate about social justice issues and causes. So all the things that really resonated and mattered to me were able to get tied into a very nice package professionally, which is really important. Um, After I'd say around 15 to 20 years of doing in the trenches working in nonprofits, I decided I wanted to hang my own shingle out, as it were, and take that experience of having been an executive director, a board chair, the whole host of other things in nonprofit organizations. Deana, you made a wonderful point about when you work in nonprofits, you wear many hats. And if you're an executive director, you wear all the hats, all the time, every day, each hat. And so I had an experience to be, to have all of that and wanted to take that and consult to other nonprofits, mainly around organizational infrastructure, financial management issues, but really broader than that, really looking at how we move and operate our nonprofit organizations, given the environment that we work in and given the environment that we live in. And so really looking at organization sustainability, looking at infrastructure development, looking at staff development, all through the lens of a 360 view of what it takes to have a successful, sustainable nonprofit. And I love that work. Love that work. So my continued love for nonprofit has allowed me to be able to, grow my practice. And it's also allowed me to be able to pursue what has become my secondary passion and one that I came to just in the last 8 or 9 years, which is teaching. I've been teaching at Columbia for about 4 years now, have taught at NYU and at Baruch College, and find the classroom experience specifically rewarding. And the idea of the stimulation and conversation and passion and commitment that students, and especially at SPS, here at Columbia has just been, it's as much a learning experience and a tremendous, wonderful thing for me as it is hopefully for the students that go through the program. So I really love being in the classroom in addition to that. So I feel like right now I have the best of both worlds. My own consulting practice, which allows me a lot of flexibility. And I'm actually good enough now to where I really can pick the clients that I want to work with. So, there was that point as a consultant where you feel as if you will take anyone that walks in the door. I'm now able to say, I don't know if I want to play in your sandbox or not. And so that's a wonderful kind of place to be, but it didn't happen overnight. But I'm very fortunate to have that. And then the teaching piece too, which is extraordinary. So it's, as Deana mentioned, it is this platform of being able to move and work in the nonprofit sector and have a lot of different experiences can lead you to a lot of really, really, really tremendous opportunities. If there are things that you are really committed to, which is the beauty of nonprofit work, we're hopefully committed to what we're doing, and you can be your authentic self. Bring all of you to whatever you do, because that's what really is the payoff we have.
Odell, I was also going to share, we've spoken about this before, but sometimes the numbers, you have a wealth of information in the numbers that then allows the nonprofit to tell a story. And we both find that to be a wonderful connection for us, whether it's students or it's programmatic. And so we really like the data science and to be able to show what it is. And then another point I just want to add is, you're always going to have a tough day in the office, or you've had maybe it's a difficult donor conversation, or if something's not going well, and then you go outside. And for me, I watch 10 kindergartners walk across the street to go to lunch, and Odell's speaking with some of his passion projects. So there's always a reminder back to the mission, and the numbers can really tell the story of the mission and the vision.
That's incredibly true, and I know for me, I often tell people when I'm teaching and even when I'm consulting, because my consulting is teaching too, the approach that I am the storyteller. That's actually what I do. I mean, finance happens to be my discipline. I use that language. I use my knowledge and expertise around understanding financial concepts and the numbers, but the numbers in and of themselves are just that. They're numbers. And what I really like to be able to do is to connect that to a story, to a narrative. And so I think finance people in particular who work in nonprofits are incredibly valuable if they understand the power of language and can put accounting and finance and the numbers into a context that really helps tell the story of an organization to stakeholders, to the public at large, to clients. Really makes a difference. So I definitely hold myself out as a storyteller more than anything else.